With over 25 years of experience in the industry, Cibeles Moreno is here to talk to us from Cosol about how they maximise their value out of the customer's asset management, Maximo Application Suite, as she likes to call it, turning a Ford into a Porsche. So let's hear it for Cibeles.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes? Thank you very much, everyone, to be here. And I'm just going to say I hope that you don't have too many sore heads from last night. And thank you so much. No one fell asleep before, so I have that challenge to put you to sleep, which is good. I think the first thing we need to do is just to say congratulations to everyone in the room, because I think you don't know that, but you are the owner of a Porsche. So you're going to say, this is not Oprah. I'm not going to say, you got a Porsche, you got a Porsche, you got a Porsche. So the reason why I say that is because we're going to be talking about the power of what Maximo has and how we're going to turn Maximo into something that we're going to turn that Porsche that is in the street car into a racing car. And how do we do that? So I'm going to go into that. So very briefly, an agenda, so you know when you can fall asleep and when you have to be awake, which bit do you want. We're going to talk about why Cosol, why do I think that we are the right team to advise you and guide you and help you. Then I have to admit, I'm a real nerd, and my background is engineering, and I love asset management, and that's how I end up in this position. I have been doing asset management for the last 20 years. I work initially, I'm from Venezuela. If someone picked the accent, I was going to try to say I'm from Alice Springs, but I think people realize that I'm not. So just in case, don't want to be a fake one. So I'm going to try to speak slow so you can understand. Unfortunately, I cannot put, these guys are good, but they don't put subtitles on it. So we're going to have to try to understand slightly. And I think the asset management is such a powerful thing. And then when I discovered, and I am not a developer, I'm not a technical person on the fact of go and build the JavaScript and all the stuff that Cohesive does very well. I am actually a user. I see the other side of the story, and I said, how can I use that to improve and apply the knowledge and apply that digital power that IBM has been able to give us. So saying to that, why the story of the Porsche? Because I must admit, my husband is a crazy Formula One fan, and he watches everything, and I wanted from the mechanical point of view to see what it is. So what I realized is that you guys made a huge investment on mass. You already invest in a product that it has everything. It's like having a Porsche. You go there, but you're in the traffic, in the Porsche traffic. But guess what? I don't look like her, but I try. So I get my microphone. We are the Red Bull team. We are the one that's going to turn you into that machine that it has all that power, into advise you, put the telemetry, take you to the pit stop, and turn that into this beautiful Cosol. Did you see Cosol is sponsoring that car? So AI at the best. So that's what we can do. So without Cosol, you're going to be on the traffic. On the Cosol traffic, in the basic deployment, we're going to be talking about the limited configuration that we have. But with Cosol and our consultants, they become your pit crew. So they are the one doing the fully configuration. We get the advances, and we get the maximum return on investment. So that is just, you just have it there. You just have to ask for the advice, and we will be there. So we help you getting across the line. So that is very important, because without Cosol, you're just going to have the car. Do you want more than that? I'm sure. So with Cosol, we have more than 20 years of experience. We have been organizing. Many of our customers are here. I'm very, very pleased to see a lot of our customers in the audience. I pay a lot of bribes for people to come here, but it didn't work that well. So I'm trying. So just very quickly, and this is something that we all have seen in the flavor of the conference. I was a little bit nervous, I must admit, because I think a lot of you are in the space of you want to see, how do I do it tomorrow? What do I need to do? Tell me the recipe of what I'm doing. This one is just telling you what is the roadmap looks like? What are we trying to achieve? So we need to know your data, which everyone has been talking about, and we know that that's the core. Then we're going into the integration. How do we integrate mass with everything else that you have in there? How do we do the analytics? What do we need to know? And then finally, we get that trophy, because the trophy means we have resilience and we have reliability. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all trying to do. Invest in something that is going to give us value for money. So the next slide is a video.
Introduction to asset management and the role of the new worldwide standard ISO 55000. Let's have a look at asset management in a practical situation. What is the new standard going to bring? An auditor is doing an internal quality assessment. He asks numerous questions. Will we reach our production target? What is the remaining lifetime of our assets? Do we comply with rules and regulations? How about costs? Are we working safely? There are no simple answers. The report is delivered to management. Today, the manager is very busy. He resolves to read the report thoroughly. Asset management contains many aspects. The meeting tries to agree on the right approach. Here, the new ISO 55000 can help to seek a common language among all disciplines. ISO 55000 favors a complete and integral approach for assets in an organization in which a clear communication exists between all parties. It coordinates between the life cycles of the assets and strives for deliberate decisions. Employees are aware of and involved in the asset management processes. It brings an improved structure in which thinking and working is done in a similar way at all levels. The company is ready to utilize new information for asset management. From policy to strategy to objectives, plans, and implementation. The company is doing well. Steady growth leads to prosperity. Money is balanced between aspects for optimized functioning of all assets. Founded decisions, sustainable growth, and organization-wide involvement. ISO 50.
There you go. That was stop, abrupt. So I hope that wasn't the brakes on the Porsche. So I think the majority of you, and I must admit, I saw the list of participants, and we have a real mix. We have the mix between a lot of asset managers, and we also have a lot of mix of IT people. So it is very interesting community, because everyone we have looking at the same thing in different ways. So when we think about what ISO 55000, what it is, and once again, ISO 55 is relatively new. It was only introduced in 2014, and it was an evolution of something called PAS 55, which was the British standards. So all it does is just give us a framework of what it is, what asset management is about. So once again, going to say something not very popular for asset managers. How many asset managers we have here? If I can see, okay, that's good, because they're not going to hate me that much. For me, I started working in asset management, as I said, 20, 25 years ago, disclosing my age. But one of the things is I discovered asset management is common sense. That's what it's all about. But I also discovered that common sense is a sense that is not that common. And that's where we come with a challenge. Because when you think about, and you're going to say, okay, you're managing your home, how do you do that? And you have an idea of what it is. What ISO managed to do is put a framework. So that makes life a lot easier for all of us, because it starts telling us there are 6 areas that you need to think in order to get the value for money and the value of the assets. That's what asset management is about, taking value out of the assets that you have. So there are 3 principles of ISO 55. 55,000 is the big framework. Then they created the 55,001, which is the requirements and tell us what we need to do. And then finally, the 55,002 is the guidelines of how do we apply the other one. There is a big myth on the industry that people try to say, you need to get certified. You really don't need to get certified. And, you know, ISO people, I hope there's nobody here. But it is a very expensive process. That's the truth. I know organizations that have done it. For example, I work with Yarra Trams in Melbourne, and they spend a lot of money doing their certification, mainly because in order to be working for the Department of Transport, and I'm not sure if there's one person that I know from the Department of Transport, I don't know if he's here, is one of the requirements. So they spend a lot of money to get the piece of paper that it says, I'm certified. However, you can be certified. You can be doing all the right things without having to have that piece of paper. And that means you're still going to get the same value. You're still going to get the value for money, but you don't have to spend. Because a lot of people does is just, I have the piece of paper. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And that's not the point. The point is we want to minimize downtime, optimize value, lifecycle management, knowing where the money's going to come. So the way I see it, and this is my personal view, we have one pillar, which is the ISO pillar, and it gives us all the framework. On the other side, we have the good friends of IBM putting all this monitor, all this manage, health, all these modules go together, and then what we need to do is create that bridge. How do we cross that bridge? How do we get that value for money? How do we link those things? Very easy. How many of you identify with that picture? A lot of you will be sitting there and saying, oh my God, I have cost, I have performance, and I have compliance. The little bit I'm going to be talking about, if I don't run out of time, people tend to think I've talked too much. I think I agree. But what we do is we just look at, we're going to look at the framework and mass operation. I cannot even pronounce the word, but you know what I mean. We're trying to turn mass into a real thing, the ISO 55. So how do we make it tangible? So when I look, and you probably some of you that came to the Cosol stand, and some of you got some of these little Rubik Cube. I use this analogy because I love the fact that Rubik Cube can be very messy. As you can see, I only managed to do one side this morning. But what it does is that align that every single side of the cube is one of the phases that we're looking at. When we're looking at a framework or when we're looking at asset management within our companies, we have to see that one side could be value realization. So that's the asset value. Then we have the alignment. The alignment is just to make sure that the policy and the corporate policies and the standards and what we're trying to say and what we're trying to say to the world that we're going to do, that's what we're doing. Then we have leadership and governance. How many of you have been struggling trying to convince your bosses of what are we going to do, how are we going to do it? Until you get that support from above, you don't move. Even if you have the best ideas in the world, even if you found a cure for cancer, if they are not aware of it or they are not supporting you, it's very, very hard. So it's extremely important to turn the message in a way that they can see it. Assurance and risk management. We are all risk managers in one way or another. What we try is to minimize that risk. Finally, lifecycle management. Everyone is interested in a Capex and an Opex because we need to get budgets, and that's how you engage Cosol to do it. So that's the cheap line. And the continuous improvement. We want to make sure that we are continuously looking at those assets and say, how can we get it better? So the purpose of all of that, I'm not going to go through that because I basically said what that means. But basically what we're trying to do when we apply that is just turn that messy cube into something that aligns. As I explained sometimes, when people listen the operational side, they only can see the orange side. So that's what is important. But the event of the managing the asset is exactly the same cube. It's just that they cannot see the blue, they cannot see the red, but if I manage to turn the speech into a way that you can understand, so this operational person can understand, the procurement people can understand, the leadership can understand, and that's how we get that alignment. So now comes to the interesting part. That's why we're here, because we want to see how mass is going to do that for us. So a lot of you have seen this slide before. It's just showing us what is that digital roadmap that mass is offering us. We start with manage, then we start getting smarter, and we start applying monitor, we start applying visual inspections, we bring health, and we bring predict. And with all of that and digital twins, we can turn that and align it to what the ISO, what the asset management principles are telling us. So using all those modules and being lucky enough to have access to all those industry solutions that we're offering, we can leverage things. I saw one presentation yesterday, very interesting, about HSC and how HSC is applied. And I think it was from one of the IBM folks. And it's interesting to see in different ways how can we bring all of this together in maximizing our operations. So this is a little bit of attempt to show what we see in the Maximo Application Suite, and the center as an object model is the assets and the people around. So this is something I really, really emphasize. Technology in itself doesn't do anything. People make the changes. But people need to know what the technology can do for them, and then we improve. So ISO 55 tell us why, and tell us what we need to do, but mass allows the how we're going to do that. So now the question that everyone wants to game for this slide. That's the governance. What do we do? How do I connect that in Maximo? How do we do that in MAS? So the asset management policy and strategy, when we connect Manage is doing that because it's doing all the work order management, it's doing all that support that we can see, we can align what we're trying to achieve. If we say we're going to be producing 100 tons of that product, we can start seeing how do we going to get there. Value realization, we have APM. So we combine health, monitor, and predict, and we have a way to measure what is the asset performance management. And now we can also use the AIP, which is the asset investment plan, and we can start looking into those models. Leadership and governance, we have plenty of dashboards. I'm going to show you at the end a little bit of a mock-up of a dashboard for specific utilities. Risk-based decision-making, Mass Predict. Predict is a very, very interesting tool because it's taking us to that next level where when I started a lot of engineering, we used to do reliability engineering, doing a lot of looking at the data. How many thousand spreadsheets do you normally use? You get the spreadsheet, then you try to do your FAMICA, you try to do your RCM, and you try to look at what is the failure mechanism, when did that happen, I'm going to do a Monte Carlo simulation, do all of that. Mass is taking all that pain away, because it's trying to put all these kind of things together. There's a reliability library that now comes with Mass, which is, I remember looking at that reliability library 15 years ago, maybe more. Now I know you know how old I am. When it was only in a company called Meridium that I don't think that even exists anymore. But the library at that point in time was very, very clever because it was the first time was a bunch of scientists in America that they decided to start looking at every single asset that they could see and then try to say, how does it fail? When does it fail? What do I need to do to prevent that failure? So that was a big advantage, especially for small companies that don't have any clue where to start when they're trying to capture failure data. Now it's part of Predict, it's part of Maximo, which is make life easier. Lifecycle management, that's how I started with Capex, Opex, lifecycle replacement. We can set up all the triggers that we need to see that. And the continuous improvement through, we can do the KPI, the analytics, and using Maximo tools again to just land up. So it's basically configuration what we need. When we look at other industries as a verticals, and going back to a little bit of the Red Bull analogy, when you think about Red Bull, they do the aviation side, they do the Formula One, they do the Porsche. In this world, what we can do is we have verticals, and those verticals can be transport, can be water utilities, can be defense. So each one of them is still the Red Bull team, but we just adjust. And is a line that I use a lot, that best practices. You know, best practices is a big word, and everyone likes to say, what are the best practices? And that sounds fancy, but the reality is, best practices is what works for your business. So what works for transport, not necessarily works for water. And what works for water, not necessarily works for a manufacturing company. So, and that is something that sometimes people say, but if you don't tell me, I say, no, let's create our own story. And that's what we do. So this is interesting because I must admit, I have never worked directly in the water industry, but I have been exposed. And since I joined Cosol 8 months ago, I have been meeting fantastic people in the water industry. So we have some of our clients. One of Water is here. PwC was there. I saw before GMW is around. So we have some of the key clients where I have been starting to learn how important it is. This tract, I'm not going to read it. Don't worry about it. It's about, it came from another report. It's an infrastructure audit report that was published in 2019. It was just before COVID. Australia spent a lot of money on this industry report. And there are 40 pages addressed just to water, looking at the country from a federal perspective, looking at how important water it is. So when you see that, you think, wow, it's a big responsibility. Not only social responsibility, but it's a critical asset. So I know you're going to laugh, especially the water people. It's going to say, what the heck? This is just a simple way. All I can see from my point of view is looking at the amount of assets that you have to manage. Each asset have to perform, have to be aligned with the other one, and have to make sure that at the end, we have a proper distribution system. Same when we're doing sewage. And that's even the sewage system is just showing us, there's a lot of assets and a lot of regulation around that. So if you think about the ISO side, we have regulation, We have leadership that it needs to align. We need to measure all those assets. This is something that probably people are going to start saying, where is my company there for the... I'm not sure if I'm missing other water utilities there. I heard that Southeast Water, I think it was around. As I mentioned, some of our customers, we're lucky that we have GMW in the room, Warner Water, Unity Water, Power and Water Corporation in the Northern Territory, Southeast Water, and Task Water. I don't think Task Water made it, but it's one of our customers as well. What I was fascinated is when I was talking to PwC, is that how much they have on board. They have to run the whole Northern Territory, and that's huge, with one company doing water, power, and gas. That's a lot. So luckily, they are doing a great job, and they can get all those. For the majority of the people here, we probably all left brain, and we are all looking for numbers and facts, and stop talking and give me numbers, give me things that are happening. So when I saw that, I thought, oh, I like that one, and I like this come from that report as well. And it's mainly talking about the exposure of water and sewage, and look at the percentage of people that have access to those things in the Northern Territory, because it's so big and isolated. So imagine how important it is if we only have 63% and we cannot even provide that. So it becomes very important that we have to be good at what we do. Once again, numbers. People love this one, and especially people from Brisbane, when I find out that Brisbane water is a lot more expensive than Perth. $176 for Brisbane, and Perth, $100. So if you want to have a pool, you better move to Western Australia because it's a lot cheaper. So it's interesting to see these numbers, how they really show us again the importance of the water. So I went into a little bit of finding out what are the main regulations that is now affecting water, because that is key to the delivery. So when we look at, in Victoria, for example, we have in 2025, from the 1st of July, there was a new regulation about the safe drinking water regulations. So that's something that we need to build in to our systems. So Maximo have to be able to say, how are we going to measure that? How are we going to warn the asset managers, and how are we going to warn that we are following that? Water markets, Murray-Darling Basin, water asset management. So in general, what I want to see, what I want to say, and what I want to highlight, there is a lot of regulation in this industry. And that's something is important, because we're dealing with lives. We're dealing with people and humans. So now, if you remember when I started looking about ISO and what MAS can do, what I did is I add another layer here, which is just saying, okay, these are the 6 sides that I was talking about in my Rubik Cube, and these are what that would look like in the water industry. So when we said align the asset management, the water security, to measure the policy and strategy, the value realization, with ensuring the safe and continuous water, we apply health, and we apply monitor. Most of you will have some sort of a SCADA or by historian or something that we can bring as a monitor, and the integrations are there. So it's not impossible, it's just a matter of configuration. Leadership, we have the dashboards. For risk management, we have predict, we have the failures, we can see where it's going to go. Lifecycle management for linear asset management, absolutely extremely important in the industry of the water, pipelines. You know, you have kilometers and kilometers of pipe, and that is so important to know, because when a pipe bursts, it's not only reputation, it's service, it's asset performance. And finally, well, using the mass analytics allows us to do that. This is just more going into details of, okay, how do we do it? Well, we do they define the hierarchy, and mass offers us asset hierarchies, location hierarchies, and I'm more than happy to share. I don't know if the organizers are going to share these slides. I think it's part of the package, but especially for the water people, they will find it useful. So that's going into specific examples, as I said. Linear asset management, that's something that for me wasn't in the radar until I started working in the transport industry, because in Melbourne, Yarra Trams have kilometers and kilometers of tracks, and they need to make sure that they're doing that. Now Cosol is working with DTP, which is the Department of Transport and Planning, and they have to coordinate all the kilometers and kilometers of roads that they have. So it's a very good feature to have. This is just a high-level operational dashboard of when we translate the ISO 55 into water, what is it could look like. So this one, I just have the same dashboard, but I'm just trying to match what is strategic objective alignments that we were talking about in the ISO, what are the clauses that we're addressing, and how we're presenting them. So with a very easy way of looking at those dashboards, and as I said, without having to apply for certification, you still could be doing it. And it's just free. So it's just a matter of look at, okay, what is the Opex? What is my Capex? Where is my investment going? How much backlog in my work orders I have? How do I improve that? What do I do with my job plans? What do I do with everything in order to produce this one? So how can Cosol help you? Well, we are helping you developing regulatory templates and dashboards like the one I just showed before. We look at the ISO standards and align with your life cycle, because it's money, let's be honest. We can have great ideas, as I say, but if we don't convince the people that have the money, we don't go anywhere. Embedding the compliance dashboards with using health. We're very lucky in our team, in my team in Cosol, I have a group of people that specialize in location services, so we have the GIS component to it, and we have a seamless integration when we use maps and we use Esri and all this kind of software. It's not my strength, but I recognize the value and the talent that we have. And we also have proprietary solutions called Valve Tracer, which I think has been used in Unity Water before. So what are the benefits of all of this? Very simple. Maximize the value, mitigate the risk, boost the performance, and insurance compliance. So we keep everyone happy. We don't have any failures. We can manage if we have failures, and then we get value. What are the big challenges? And this is what everyone relates. Data quality and readiness. How many people have so many issues with data? We have a particular client that they use Maximo basically as a database dump. They don't know how to use it, and they pay, so because they didn't know, they start building all these applications outside, which basically replicates the use of Maximo, and they just put it all, and then they go through the back end, and then they put it there, and then we have to see which data got replicated, which data integrity. So they're spending so much time, and in this particular case, they actually report to the US government. So it is imperative for them that has to be right. So they call us, we're working with them, and we're happily saying that, yes, it's going well. But this is the bit where we're spending so much time. Once we get that, the rest will flow very, very quick. And licensing and app points. Sorry, IBM guys, it's expensive. For the rest of the users, we know that it's expensive, but when we look at that, yes, we're going to be paying up points, which I think is a great model, because as I give an example sometimes, I pay at home for my Office 365, but I have to pay exactly the same for me that I use all the suite of the Office 365, or when I let my mother-in-law use it, which she only uses, and she click one thing and she click another, but I still have to pay Excel and pivot tables and that, and she doesn't even know how to use it. My husband uses Excel just for his wine list, and I use it for a lot more than that. So, there are points that the IBM model is allowing us to do that. Someone that wants just to use the list for the wine, that's fine. We just only use the monitor, or we only use the manage, but it allows us to be flexible with that. So the roadmap, same thing. Let's prepare the data. Let's get the proof of concept. I'm lucky enough as well at the moment, working with PwC, we're trying to run an APM proof of concept, which I'm very excited about because they are actually embracing this new mass, they're getting into it. And then at the end, what we're going to have is an APM maturity, and we're going to have the ISO 55000 alignment there. So just the final thoughts. ISO 55000 will define what good looks like, must deliver the digital capability to achieve it, and together is the maturity, the compliance, and the business value. And guess what? We got the final cube. So how many of you are going to be last night where we're trying to solve the little cube? So someone came and complained and said, the key ring just fell off. This is not good. No, because you didn't engage the right people to tell you how to do it. So that's it. So why are we trying to do this? Because it's the fastest time into achieve value, reduce the risk, maximize the return on investment. It's a continuous improvement, trusted partnership, unique solutions, and the industry specific. And I think as well, what we bring to the table is that because we have so many clients on this space, our knowledge, our library of knowledge is immense now, and it's growing. And it's maximize the value that when a water utility comes to us, we already have a big shelf full of, as I call it, the pantry of knowledge, and I decide what cake we're gonna cook for that client. But we have the flour, we have all the eggs are there, everything is there. It's just depending which client they want, we will pick the right ingredients and we put it. But we already know that we have the flour and we have the eggs and we have the milk. So we don't have to go and buy one because it's there. The knowledge is there, so the minimizing the delivery is very good. And for all the industries, people want things today. Okay, so we're in the generation where we want instant gratification. My final line, because I know I'm talking too much and I'm not doing too bad on time. Your assets tell the story. With ISO 55000 and MAS and Cosol, it's a story of value, assurance, and continuous improvement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cibeles.